I am with OCPA, Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. Has anyone heard?
I can't hear you at all.
Sorry about that. Has anyone heard of OCPA before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're a think tank, sort of a state-level version. Thank you.
You don't have to lean forward.
Perfect. A state-level version of the Heritage Foundation, basically, which, of course, is the nation's largest conservative think tank. In fact, the founder of our organization is a retired orthopedic surgeon in Oklahoma City, David Brown, who was on the Heritage Board and indeed chairman of the Heritage Foundation for 20 years or so. And during that time, he saw the effect that Heritage was having, at least somewhat, in D.C. And he said, you know, we need a think tank in the States. And so he formed one in Oklahoma City 21 years ago. And I've been with them 19 years. So I have seniority by far and more gray hair than anyone. And I live in Edmond with my wife, Susie. We have 6 kids. I like to say 2 in college, 1 in diapers, 3 in between. That explains the gray hair. But I appreciate the invite to come down and just tell a little bit about OCPA, but also talk about educational choice. I brought a lot of our materials. Please take any of these. We have a monthly magazine. This is what think tanks do, of course. They publish books and studies and magazines and op-eds, and we do media interviews and so on, trying to just put forth the message that free enterprise and limited government are preferable to socialism and central planning and everything that's going on in Washington right now. We also bring in a lot of high-profile speakers. Through the years, we've had Sarah Palin and Paul Ryan and Clarence Thomas and Mitch Daniels and Steve Forbes and John Stossel and Walter Williams and just great speakers. We're bringing Britt Hume to Tulsa next month. Some of you can come to that. And so through these various publications and public forums, we're just trying to make the case for free enterprise and hope that the guys down the street at 23rd and Lincoln listen to us, which doesn't always happen. I tell people the only thing worse than Democrat majorities is Republican majority. I say that half facetiously. But tonight, I know we all believe in freedom, and I want to talk about a key component of freedom, which is educational freedom. Just talk about what it is, give some arguments against it, give some arguments for it, just give the state of play in Oklahoma right now, and then just have a Q&A and conversation with you about the subject. I don't think we talk about educational choice as much as we need to. I mean, when it comes to education policy in Oklahoma, we talk about all sorts of things, and everyone has their ideas. You know, we need more money. People say, no, we spend enough already. It's got to get it to the classroom. Other people say, yeah, that's it. We have too many school districts, too much overhead. We need to get rid of that and get more into the classroom. Other people say, you know, we need high standards like Common Core. Other people say, oh, heavens no, that's the last thing we need. We need more local control. Other people say, we need phonics, you know, if they can't read by 3rd grade. Yeah, if they can't read, let's give them the test and not promote them. Yeah, we need A through F report cards. No, those aren't fair. What we need is prayer in school. You know, once we kicked God out, everything went downhill. You know, on and on. All these ideas that we talk about in education, and what I want to talk about tonight is none of those. I have my own view on each of those, but that's not what I think we should be talking about. I think we need to be talking about freedom, educational choice. Now, I suppose the ultimate of freedom would be a complete separation of school and state, a complete free market in education. And maybe one day when we all get to Libertopia, we'll have that. But for now, as long as we're going to have compulsory attendance laws and compulsory taxation to pay for it all, I say we need to give parents choices. We need to give them the control of the money to let them do what they want. So if we think about public education in Oklahoma, the way we all experienced it growing up, public education. That just means that we send our tax dollars to the government, and then our children attend the school bureaucratically assigned to them based on where they live. And that's pretty straightforward. That's the way it was for me growing up in the Bartlesville Public Schools, probably the way it is for you, and it's obviously the way it is for the vast majority of children in Carter County and throughout the whole state right now. But slowly this is changing. The definition of public education is changing. In the 21st century, public education is coming to mean we want an educated public. And it doesn't really matter where that education takes place. Okay? We want an educated public, and it shouldn't matter if it happens at a charter school, a private school, a traditional public school, a home school, an online school, or some mix of all the above. We just want an educated public. And so today we have all those options I mentioned. When I was a kid, there were no such thing as charter schools. I never heard of homeschooling. Virtual schools, obviously, we didn't have that. We didn't have kids using vouchers or tax credits or education savings accounts to go to private school. But today we have all those things, or Oklahoma doesn't necessarily have all of them, but the country has all of them. And so we're getting this educated public in a lot of different ways, and to an extent that I think would surprise you. For example, did you realize that today in Florida, more than 40% of students are attending a school of choice? So more than 4 out of 10 kids in Florida right now don't go to the public school closest to their house. They either go to a charter school or a virtual school, or they're homeschooled, or they use a voucher or a tax break to go to a private or whatever it may be. In Indiana, more than half the students in the state are eligible for private school vouchers right now. Most of the voucher students are from big cities, but 30% are from suburban or rural areas. Indeed, overall, there are more than 50 private school choice programs operating in 24 states, including Oklahoma, you may be surprised to learn, giving some parents the freedom to choose whatever school is they think safest and best for their kids. I want to talk about briefly, and I don't want to just go on and on because I want to have time for conversation, but let me mention the 3 school choice policies that I think are most important to talk about and that I research and write about and talk about the most. And that's vouchers, tax credits, and education savings accounts. Now, a voucher program, you probably know what that is. It just means the dollars follow the child. Parents can choose a private school and they get a state-funded scholarship to pay tuition. Roughly a dozen states have vouchers, including Oklahoma, you may be surprised to learn. It's called the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship Program for Students with Disabilities. Republican lawmakers Jason Nelson and Patrick Anderson pushed that through in 2010. In other states, eligibility is much broader than just special needs kids. As I said, in Indiana, half the kids in the state are eligible. So that's vouchers. The other big one is tax credits, or tax credit scholarship programs, which are kind of more difficult to understand, but basically companies and individuals can donate money to a nonprofit group that pays private school tuition for kids that can't afford it. And then the donors get a tax credit for having donated. Not merely a tax deduction, but a tax credit. Roughly a dozen states have those laws, including Oklahoma, which was pushed through in 2011. So, and indeed it was strengthened this year. Tax credit was bumped from 50% to 75%. So if you're looking for a good way to not send money to the Oklahoma Tax Commission, I would recommend you send it to a scholarship fund, and it's almost a dollar for dollar wash. And it feels good to not send money to the Oklahoma Tax Commission. OCPA actually launched one of these scholarship funds just right now, this year, and it's even now getting off the ground. It's called Opportunity Scholarship Fund. So you can go to osfkids.org and find out more about that. So vouchers and tax credits continue to spread throughout the country. The new kid on the block is what's called education savings accounts. And folks at Heritage Foundation and elsewhere think this is really the future of school choice. with an ESA, the state puts the money that it would have spent on your child into a bank account that the parent controls. And then the parent can use that money however they want to spend it, at a private school or a virtual or a mix of options. If they don't spend the full amount every year, it just rolls over and they can save it for college if they want to. Only two states so far have this, Arizona and Florida, but undoubtedly that number will continue to grow. Mississippi came within a whisker this year as well. So these programs are growing, and I think it's a good thing. I think educational choice is good. Freedom is good. Not everyone agrees with me. Let me give some of the arguments that you hear against school choice, against educational choice. Probably the best way to do it, I thought, was just to let the opponents speak in their own words on why they think it's a bad idea. The NEA, the National Education Association, you probably know is the nation's largest, not only largest teacher union, but largest labor union, period. And they say this: the National Education Association believes that public educational opportunities for every American must be preserved and strengthened. Public education is the cornerstone of our social, economic, and political structure, and is of utmost significance in the development of our moral, ethical, spiritual, and cultural values. The NEA believes that voucher plans, tuition tax credits, or other funding arrangements that use tax monies to subsidize private school education can undermine public education and reduce the support needed to adequately fund public education. The association opposes voucher plans, tuition tax credits, or other such arrangements that pay for students to attend sectarian or non-sectarian private schools. So that's pretty typical. That's the argument you hear nationally and at the state capitol as well from the education establishment. The American Federation of Teachers makes a similar argument. They say since the early 90s, school vouchers and other schemes have used taxpayer money to pay for all or part of the cost of tuition to private schools. Vouchers divert funding from schools that serve the vast majority of students, and they become a distraction from the more serious discussions. When politicians push vouchers, less attention is paid to reducing class sizes and so on. To deceive the public, proponents have created stealth voucher programs with more appealing names, such as tuition tax credits or opportunity scholarships. But the outcome is the same: public money subsidizing private school tuition. So again, those are the things you hear at 23rd and Lincoln, especially that part about we don't want public money to go to private schools. The superintendent up at Scheidler Public Schools recently put it this way: there are many miles of state highway and rest stops and road signs and state parks that I'm sure I'll never utilize in my lifetime, but I pay for these services as part of the greater good of our state. I live on a rather dusty country road, and should I want to blacktop it for my convenience, I'm sure the county would be glad to let me do it at my expense, but I don't expect my neighbors to do it for me. You want a private education, feel free to do so at your expense. He says, I don't agree with using taxpayer funds to pay for private institutions outside the public system. So that's the main thrust of what you'll hear. Now on the other side, obviously there are strong arguments for school choice, I think, or else I wouldn't be here talking to you. One of the best arguments comes from the 2012 National Republican Platform, and I think it really is wise to place the emphasis that it does on parents. Sorry to be reading so much, but saying in their own words what they say. The Republican platform says parents are responsible for the education of their children. We don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach to education. We support providing broad education choices to parents and children. Education is much more than schooling. It's the whole range of activities by which families and communities transmit to a younger generation not just knowledge and skills, but ethical and behavioral norms and traditions. It's the handing over of a personal and cultural identity. That's why education choice has expanded so vigorously. It's also why American education has, for the last several decades, been the focus of constant controversy. Centralizing forces outside the family and community have sought to remake education in order to remake America. They have not succeeded, but they've done immense damage. School choice, whether through charter schools, open enrollment, virtual schools, vouchers, tax credit, it's important for all children. A young person's ability to achieve in school must be based on his or her God-given talent and motivation, not on an address or a zip code. I think that's right on target, especially that part about parents, because when you think about it, and I think there's a professor at the University of Arkansas, Jay Green, who says this best. You know, education is just a subset of parenting. And since in a free society the government defers to parents on how to raise their children, the government should also defer to parents on how to educate their children. So we should invest the money in the child, not in the system. So as Jay Green says, just give parents the money and let them choose the location, manner, and content of the children's education. Parents, not government officials, should determine the child's path in life. So that's why whenever the education establishment says, you know, we need to raise per pupil spending. Currently it's $8,300 per student in Oklahoma. According to the NEA, it's $8,800 according to the census. But anywhere in that vicinity, they say we need to raise it. We need to raise it to, you know, whatever, 9,000. I say, I agree. In fact, let's go to 10,000. I want to raise it too, but on the condition that you give the money to parents, not to the system. Now, some opponents of school choice say parents are not professionals and they are not qualified to make decisions that important. Actually, I remember sitting in the House gallery in 2010 listening to the debate over the Henry Scholarship, and one lawmaker said, in some cases, mothers and fathers know what's best for their child, but he said, in other cases, quote, parents may think they know what's best, but do they? I remember I fell out of my chair that he actually said that. I later wrote a column in which I said, if the parents of House District 3 cannot be trusted to choose a good school for their children, how can they be trusted to choose a competent official to represent them in the Oklahoma House of Representatives? But some people actually see that. There's a whole little cottage industry of YouTube videos of gotcha moments of union officials throughout the country saying similarly patronizing things. But anyway, I think the stress on parents is important. The Oklahoma Republican Party also picks up on this theme. In the platform they say, we believe the family is the cohesive element that maintains social order and protects individual rights. The duty and privilege of nurturing our young people belongs to parents and the traditional family. We support the role and right, we support the sole right and responsibility of parents to rear, educate, discipline, nurture, provide health care, and spiritually train their children without government interference. Someone in this room may have written that for all I know, who was on the platform committee, but that was well said. It says, it's the right and responsibility of parents to direct their children's upbringing and education, whether public, private, charter, or homeschool, without interference, regulation, or penalty from the government. We support the creation of a free market education system. We believe all parents should be allowed to use their education tax dollars for the family's choice of schooling. So, if you did something like that, parents obviously are going to make all sorts of different choices. And they'll have different reasons. And they'll have different reasons at different stages of their life. Sometimes it'll be academic. There's a Reverend Donald Tyler at the Greater Grace Church in Tulsa who spoke at an OCPA press conference. And he told reporters, quote, I have kids in my church who have graduated from high school who can't read. You tell me the system is working? Sometimes it's not academic, sometimes it's just safety, it's bullying and all the things that go along with that. Or maybe it's just a matter of religious freedom. I know, suspect we all applaud Hobby Lobby for the fight that they waged against Obamacare's anti-conscience mandate. A lot of parents feel just that strongly about education. They want their Christian parents, for example, say, I want my kids to have a Christ-centered education. And even though there's plenty of good teachers and moral teachers at my kids' school, and they're doing the best they can, their hands are sort of tied because the system, just as a matter of law and policy, the system has to officially be agnostic. And I don't want that. I wish I could do something else for them. So I would say those parents deserve the freedom to choose something else. Now, granted, they have the freedom now. They can enroll their children anywhere they want, or they can homeschool. But if they wanted to go to a Christian school, for example, you have to remember, the average Oklahoman this year worked all of January, all of February, all of March, and the first week of April to earn enough money to pay the federal, state, and local tax collector. So oftentimes parents don't have enough money left over for tuition. And so, it's hard. You may have a right, but if it can't be exercised, then you're not in any better shape. Now, what about that argument that Scheidler superintendent mentioned a minute ago about public money shouldn't go to private schools, which does happen with vouchers. It doesn't happen with tax credits because tax credit donations are not public money. They never enter the public treasury. But that's an argument that the other side doesn't really nuance that well. But when you talk about vouchers or ESAs, should public money go to private school? Well, the fact is, and we may not like it, but public money goes to private institutions all the time now. Oklahoma pre-K kids can use some of that money to go to a private school or daycare. DHS money finds its way to private daycares. You can use your Pell Grant to go to Oral Roberts University or OBU. You can use your OTAG or your Oklahoma Promise Scholarship to go to a private university. Heck, even now, superintendents, even though they screamed against the special needs vouchers, even before that law was enacted, the superintendents do that themselves. If a kid shows up with profound disabilities and the federal law says you have to give an adequate education, and they do, but this little girl is going to cost $200,000 a year, the superintendents are quick to send them to school in Wichita or other places that cater to special needs kids. And so it's public money to private school at the superintendent's discretion. So why shouldn't it just be at the parent's discretion? And it's not just education. I mean, we know public money goes to private institutions all the time. Just because the government provides the service doesn't mean the government has to produce that service. The government provides food stamps, for example. Way too many, but they do. But the government, fortunately, doesn't own and operate grocery stores. Much less demand that the citizens shop at the government-owned grocery store closest to their house. That would be weird and just profoundly un-American. Citizens are free to go to whatever grocery store they want. Government provides health care, but thankfully that doesn't mean everyone has to go to a VA hospital. You can take your Medicare or your Medicaid and go to a private doctor or a private hospital. The government provides for the common defense, but the government doesn't make its own tanks and missiles. We have Boeing and Lockheed Martin and so forth do stuff like that. So what I'm saying is the same principle should apply in education. Dr. Charles Glenn, a professor at Boston University School of Education, says every country in the world, except North Korea, Vietnam, and Cuba, allows parents to choose schools. And every Western democracy, except the U.S., provides public funding to support those choices. Now, so this whole thing, I'm not meaning to make it a war between public or private schools. That's not what the whole question was about. Governor Scott Walker was in our office a few months ago talking to a small group, and he said, look, this isn't public versus private. My own kids went to public schools. The choice is about just ensuring that every parent has the right to choose what's best for their own kid. And we know that from survey data that Oklahomans support choice, and we know that Republican primary voters really support choice. I'll just talk about two surveys. One by Braun Research in early this year. I guess they were in the field in November and we released it in January. But here's what they found. Okay, right now, you probably know more than 9 out of every 10 kids go to a traditional public school. But the survey found that parents kind of wanted more options than that. The surveyor asked if it was up to you and you could choose the best school for your kids, what would you choose? 1 out of 3 said they chose a traditional public school. But 2 out of 3 chose something else. They said we want private, charter, homeschool, or something else. And voters favor vouchers, ESAs, and tax credits. And among Republicans, the numbers are just off the chart. I brought some of these along and we wrote it up. There's a Terrence poll. Terrence is the firm that Governor Fallon and Congressman Langford use, and he's a solid Republican pollster. And so they ran this poll in June and they asked Republican primary voters. And by the way we know this poll is accurate because it was a week or 2 before the Sooner poll came out, and this Terrence poll found Hofmeister was killing Barisi, and it ended up being, it was kind of a shock at the time, but it ended up being exactly right. So you can have high confidence in these numbers. Republican primary voters favor the Lindsay Nicole Henry Scholarship Program for special needs kids, 76% to 15%. They favor tax credit scholarships, 72 to 17. Favor ESAs, 64-26. Anyway, that's all in here. I brought plenty of these. And interestingly, and perhaps counterintuitively, the support even went up among rural voters. I think the one question that says it all, and this is a good, none of these questions are loaded, and it doesn't do any good to ask loaded questions and get numbers you want. We want to know what people really think. In this question, you'll see how even-handed it is. The surveyor says, now I'd like to read you 2 viewpoints on this issue. Please tell me which one comes closest to your own. And then they read and rotate the alternatives so the same one doesn't go first every time. Some people say that educational choice programs give parents the power to choose the school that works best for their child and puts pressure on all schools to do a better job educating kids. Other people say that educational choice programs rob public schools of the funds they need to improve and allow a select few to get a better education while other students are trapped. Which viewpoint comes closest to your own? The power to choose got 72%, and the rob public schools is only 18%. So, I gave the arguments against choice, the arguments for choice, said that Oklahomans, and especially Republicans, favor it. Let me just talk about the state of play right now, and then that'll be a nice transition to Q&A, I think. In 2014, where we are now, Oklahoma has charter schools. I'm sure you know that. And there's a continuing push, and I'm sure will be year after year, to expand the law and make it easier to build and attract more operators to the state. Oklahoma has a voucher system. Believe it or not, it's very tiny. It's limited to special needs kids. And most people don't know this, even people that are aware politically. But if you know a child on special ed, on an IEP, it could be something as profound as autism or something just a mild learning disability, anything that gets you an IEP. And there are 100,000 students in this state that are on that. They're eligible right now to go to a private school. And out of those 100,000 kids, there's only 300 kids taking it. So that tells you either people don't know about it and or people are pleased with the special ed they're getting at their traditional public school. But high quality mini documentaries on YouTube that I urge you to check out. So that exists. Now the sort of dark cloud hanging over that is it's being litigated. The establishment has got it tied up in court trying to get it declared unconstitutional. So we'll see what happens there. And Oklahoma has a tax credit scholarship program, as I mentioned, and this year was even strengthened, so the tax credit goes up to 75%. So where do we go from here on school choice? In my view, we need to just keep expanding all these options and enact new ones too. There's no silver bullet in school choice. We need a healthy menu of options. Some parents want charter, some may want private with a voucher or private with a tax credit or virtual. I mean, let 1,000 flowers bloom. So I think we need to expand vouchers. Can't really do that till the court kind of settles the question. We need to expand tax credits. Rather than just having tax credit scholarships, we should have individual tax credits. Allow individual parents to get a tax credit for private school tuition that they pay for, or online learning, or tutoring, or other approved expenses. We should enact ESAs, as I said, education savings accounts, which was introduced last year and it went down in flames, but that was just year one, so you got to come back year after year and put the parents in charge, let them bank the money and do what they want. Actually, the money comes on a debit card, and you can't go to the casino with it because it's programmed in to only approved vendors, but you can go to a private school or Kumon Learning Center or medical therapy for autism or whatever it may be. So OCPA will continue to write and talk about all these, even as we continue to talk about cutting taxes and reducing government spending at the Capitol and blocking Obamacare and everything else, pension reform, all the things that we do. Please take all these. So I hope you'll join us. Hook up with us on Facebook and Twitter if you do that stuff. My marketing people tell me to always encourage you to join. For $25 a year, you can join. And I've sweetened the pot. I brought some little giveaways here in closing. For people that join at the $25 level, you can have Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. You can have Bastier's classic, The Law, if you choose that one instead. Here's a governor that actually does stuff, Mitch Daniels, Keeping the Republic. I even brought one of Governor Keating's children's books on Teddy Roosevelt. And someone's really lucky. I brought an autographed copy of Dinesh D'Souza's book, America. So if anyone wants to join our organization and pay my salary, which is important, keep the lights on, be happy to have you do that. But for now, just any kind of questions or comments.
When you join, you get this month.
Yeah, the magazine comes in the mail, and you get all our information and invitations to all our events and all that.
The vouchers, do they actually cover the full tuition to the private school for the disability kids?
Not usually. Yeah, it's 95% of the per pupil. So the voucher's normally 8,000 or so, or the tuition at the school, whichever is less. But for the profoundly disabled kids, kids at Town and Country School in Tulsa or Trinity School in Oklahoma City that is, or actually there's a school at Mercy Hospital too that started up for autism, and it's like $25,000 a year, so it doesn't cover it, but at least it helps. I mean, those parents need all the help they can get. Yes, sir.
On the vouchers and the property taxes to go, say for instance, my wife and I, we pay, I think $1,000 total our property taxes to go over home. So the school taxes we pay obviously are going to be less than that per year. So are we still talking about a voucher system where everybody, whether they have kids or not, would be still contributing to the system? Because obviously, if I paid $600 in school taxes last year, that's not, if we had 2 kids, we couldn't put them through school with $600 a year.
Right.
So we're still going to be, robbing from these people or pay these people kind of thing,
Yes. Do I sense a strong libertarian current in that?
No. Well, yeah. No, but I'm just wondering, we're still talking about the same basic system where everybody's pulling money in and then we're distributing it.
That's right. Under a voucher, the local funding wouldn't be affected. That would be a nightmare. You couldn't In fact, I don't think the state constitution would let you do that. We're just talking about the state portion of it, of the funding. But yeah, it'd basically just be saying, look, we're still gonna take all this money from you at the point of a gun and educate everyone else's kid, but at least now you can choose wherever you want to go instead of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just thinking, because unless property taxes go up extremely for only people that have kids in school.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Then it's still gonna be
All right.
one other thing, the privatization or the, like, say, Florida with the vouchers and that kind of thing, have they seen any kind of reduction in overall, education for the state?
Spending, you mean, or
Yeah.
results?
I mean, in other words, are we saving money doing this?
Yes, yes, indeed, you do save money, and that's, and you save money, well, depending on how you write the statute, but like, we know the Oklahoma voucher is saving money because it's just 95% per pupil, and the schools get to keep the other 5% for their trouble. And in other states, yeah, I mean, the voucher is $3,000 or $4,000, and so that kid goes away, and the school gets to keep $4,000 to educate someone who's not there anymore. So it does save money. Now, the schools say, oh, we have fixed costs, and I understand you have fixed costs, but they're not that high. If you get to keep money for a child that's not there, now ideally, you wouldn't leave any money behind. You just use the extra money to cut taxes or something. But vouchers and tax credits and ESAs do save money. They have to. At least all the ones that are all the 52 programs that we have now.
Anybody else have comments or anything that would be?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be about it. It should be about, we do healthcare, and I don't know if you saw, did you see this brouhaha about Mary Fallon's latest email releases? They sued to make her release records, and she wouldn't do it, and finally she won, but said, well, I'm going to release these final 100 pages anyway. And like 62 of the pages had to do with OCPA and how they were mad at us because we had said from the beginning, don't take the Obamacare exchange grant, don't expand Medicaid, don't set up an exchange. And it's easy when you're principled, you just do the right thing and you don't have to be confused. But they were, all their internal emails were, mad at us. And, so it's good. I guess I'm making a pitch for membership. If you want conservatism to have any, or libertarianism to have any impact at the Capitol, you can't always depend on elected officials. You have to have someone there holding their feet to the fire.
Do you guys, what would you call it, where you go and talk to the, where you go in and you talk to all the
Lobby.
Y'all have a lobbyist?
We don't lobby as a 501c3. We can't. We do have a 501c4, which is a lobbyist downstairs. Dave Bond, and his organization is called OCPA Impact. So we're the think tank, and he's the do tank, or the battle tank even. Dave Bond. And so during the legislative session, when there are 200 lobbyists roaming the halls saying, make taxes higher, make spending higher, there's one lobbyist saying, make taxes lower, make spending lower. So he's really outnumbered, but he's doing a great job. And gross production taxes went up 100% this year, but they would have gone up 600% if it weren't for Dave and a few other key people.
What's the challenge, the constitutional challenge? What's the issue?
On vouchers? Oklahoma and 37 other states have what's called a Blaine Amendment in their constitution. No public money to sectarian schools. And so that's the key sticking point. Our argument is that this is money going to parents, and some of it may find its way to secondary schools, but some of it doesn't. I mean, it just, so, we've made our arguments, and they've made their arguments, so we'll just have to see. You know, if this is why you need a menu of options. You need vouchers and tax credits and ESAs and charters and all sorts of things. Because the other side will litigate and try to kill anything, but the more things you throw at them, the harder it is for them to play defense.
Can you tell if states like Florida or some other do this, are the public schools getting better? Are they improving because of it?
They are, which won't probably surprise anyone in this room, but I'm trying to think, 22 or so studies, I've written it up, have been performed on school choice program. I mean, people from Harvard and Stanford and the Federal Reserve have looked at, okay, how does school choice affect the kids that get it and leave, and how does it affect the kids that stay behind? And in every case but one, students that get vouchers and students that stay behind do better in school, and the other study found no effect. So it's really overwhelming, the results, which is not a surprise. I mean, it's like we had John Walton, the late John Walton, he died in a plane crash a few years ago, but Sam Walton's son, he came and gave a speech for us. He was a major school choice philanthropist. He said, in our business, Walmart, some of our toughest stores to run are the ones with no competition, because it makes it harder to get ginned up to go into work and do your best. Which makes sense. I mean, obviously, if there's a Target across the street, the Walmart is going to be a lot better. So it's no surprise that school choice improves public schools. And we've even, I mean, I remember when the Henry voucher passed, the lady in the Muskogee school said, man, we're going to have to step up our game now because we don't want to lose kids. So that's the way the world works. So it shouldn't be a surprise that competition breeds excellence.
What about homeschoolers who are concerned that then they'll be told what kind of curriculum?
That's an excellent point. And homeschoolers generally, and homeschoolers in Oklahoma especially, don't want anything to do with vouchers. And I don't blame them. I'm a homeschool dad. I wouldn't take a voucher for anything. And so we go to great lengths to assure them this doesn't apply to you, and like we even drafted the education savings account in a way that it does not apply to them. I mean, ESA, I could find my way to take some of that and you can use it and not worry about the government, but people are really scared about that. And in Arizona, homeschoolers can use an ESA. In Oklahoma, that would just be a kiss of death. As you know, the homeschoolers light up the switchboards like no one else, and they're great. So you have to make them happy, and so no vouchers for them, no ESAs, but they should like tax credits. I mean, they should like money that doesn't go to the public treasury. I mean, there's ways.
How does that work out?
Well, I mean, I'd like to be able to, when I file my taxes, say, well, I spent a lot, I spent $4,000, say, on all these books and these 2 online courses we took and this, blah, blah, blah. And I'd love to be able to have a tax credit to not have to send that. Because, by the time my wife and I are done, we will have saved the politicians $500,000 that they can go build a bridge or something, or put someone on Medicaid. So, I like a little something for the effort, A tax credit would be nice, even if it's small. But that's a long way in the future, I think. But that's why we try to think of innovative ways to get purchasing power to parents.
Who are some of the legislators that are champions?
The biggest champion is Representative Jason Nelson from Oklahoma City. And Tom Newell from Seminole is excellent as well. And even on the Democrat side, Senator Jabbar Shumate from Tulsa is every bit as good as those two. In fact, I'd rather have him than several Republicans I could name in the legislature. I mean, he's liberal on most everything else, but he's great on this. So it's a strange bedfellows thing like politics is.
Todd?
Well, my mind was kind of good. Well, I was wondering if I heard you right. Did you say four out of 10 students are homeschooled?
No, they go to a school of choice. Some of them are homeschooled, but 4 out of 10 go someplace other than their local public school. So a good chunk of those are homeschooled, but they have a big virtual school there, statewide virtual. They have bukus of vouchers and tax credits.
Is it more to help the kids get to make the choice to better schools? Or, I mean, I was wondering why so many of them are not going to the local school. You know, I mean, bad teaching or
Well,
problems?
I mean, it's if you think, I mean, it's not the strongest constituencies for school choice are oftentimes Black and Hispanic and inner city. I mean, like I live by Edmond North High School, and there's not a lot of people in my neighborhood clamoring to go somewhere else. I mean, they all moved to Edmond so they could go to Edmond schools. But it's the people in Oklahoma City and, you know, trapped in bad areas, and, you know, they're the ones that are desperate to get out. And so you see at the state capitol in Florida, you see these big marches of 10,000 people, and the faces are black and brown. And white, but so that's the big myth that the other side likes to push is, oh, school, you just want your rich friends to go to Cassidy and Hall and Hall. No, my rich friends are already going to Cassidy and Hall and Hall. They are, or they move to Edmond where they can go to, you know. It's the people that can't afford it that are really in trouble. I mean, so.
So are some of those 4 out of the 10 maybe also going to a different public school?
Yeah, it could be that
And they
too.
can take that money to that.
That's
other
right,
public
could be
school.
that too, right. Or a charter school,
Just not their own.
just not the,
public school.
right, not the way we understand it growing up, the closest elementary school to my house, you know,
What are virtual schools?
online,
Just,
so.
You don't have to walk around with a helmet on or anything.
No.
I was worried about that.
Yes, you could. And there's all kinds of varying models of that, and then in a way that is homeschooling. You just, you know, maybe you've heard radio ads for Oklahoma Virtual High School or K12.com, and you can, that's, a lot of people are doing that now. That's a way to actually, you know, homeschool for free, if you will. You can just go to public school in your
that
house.
is public school at home.
That's right, that's right. And, you know, a lot of homeschoolers and libertarians sort of resent that because it's, you're bringing the government into my kitchen table and that's bad. And so there's all sorts of, you know, arguments, and people just have to do what they.
Now, I've seen those. I've seen them on the internet, and it's really neat. I mean, you got the guy doing the talk, and you they're actually a pretty cool deal.
Absolutely.
You know, it's really cost effective.
And Oklahomans can do that now.
Yeah.
And how does that affect
Yeah,
those schools in their area?
They just wouldn't get the per pupil. It'd be the same as like if you moved from Ardmore to Tulsa, then Ardmore wouldn't get your per pupil anymore.
But the parents not getting it either. So
No, the parents not getting it. No, it's the virtual school is public school just through. But the quality is often a lot better, especially through K-12, and depending on who the vendor is. If it's like K12.com.
Anybody can do that. You don't have to be eligible some way, violence or have trouble.
No. I would just go Google up Oklahoma Virtual High Schools, and there's a few will come up. Connections Academy is another one.
So what about if, say I lived in a rural area and the public school in this town has a really stinks, that the school stinks, but it has a really good science teacher and a really good BOAG program, and I'd really like my homeschool child to go to the biology class that he teaches and the BOAG.
Yeah.
And it's
Olive Garden.
and you know, I'm already paying taxes
Right,
for that.
right.
So why can't my kid go to those specific
I
classes?
agree, and maybe depending on how hostile or friendly the superintendent is in that little town, you may be able to.
Well, and I would suspect too, then that local school would get part of the voucher of
You could.
that individual.
You could
So I
divide it.
could see where there wouldn't be hostility, the school would be solicited.
They would want-
Hey,
yeah,
look, we
indeed.
got a great science program, send your kid here.
Yeah, indeed, that's right. And see, these kind of questions come up because all this is really kind of new. I mean, vouchers started in Milwaukee in 1990, but all this is kind of, the internet and online and, all these different choices. I mean, there's just so many more choices, which makes it harder, but that's okay because, gosh, am I going to go to Target or Walmart or Kohl's? What am I going to do? I mean, that's a good problem to have, but it makes it hard for policymakers to, draft statutes that are fair and make sense and can get past the opposition.
Jason, what would be, you're in that field, so what's your thoughts on that, all that? How does that
As
figure?
far as your kid coming up, I can tell you right now, they wouldn't give you the money to cover the cost.
Yeah,
Do what?
I'd be where a superintendent would be against it. It's your kid that wanted to come do 2 hours, the
Yeah.
state couldn't give me enough money
Right.
to make it worth my while.
Oh,
I was,
it would need to be changed.
yeah, I mean, you'd have to have some.
But would you like it if somebody nearby could come to the school for the money?
So that again,
If someone from a neighboring district wanted to come to your school?
they could do that now.
You could let them, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can
Open
you can go to
enrollment.
any school you want to. We have open enrollment. You can go to
Yeah.
any school you want to. The receiving district just has to.
Yeah.
Got tons of them.
So in Florida, where they have the vouchers, do they have to receive them? Do they not have a choice?
The receiving schools you talking about public or private?
Public.
Well, then that really wouldn't be called a voucher, that'd just be open transfer or open enrollment. I don't think there's really money changing hands. Voucher and tax credit really more is referring to if you're gonna go from public to private. Because, yeah, we do have open enrollment of intra and inter-district choice. If the superintendent has room and will take it, you can do that now. But they don't always have room. I mean, a kid from, inner city Tulsa wants to go to Jenks or Union, I mean, good luck. I mean, you have open transfer, but good luck if getting, I think that would be unlikely, but.
I was told one time that, this is just here, that a school gets X amount of dollars for a child to be in that school that day. Give X amount. They said, for example, if they took 2 hours there and didn't spend the next another 4, 5, 6 hours there at home, would the school still get the maximum amount of dollars for that kid being in school there?
I am not sure, and you may know, I mean,
What would they get?
there is a day that they pick, October 1 or what it is, just
I never heard it go up and down the hour. I shook your head no. I never heard
You don't get paid by the hour.
Huh?
You don't get paid by the hour.
they would have to set up a new system to accommodate all of
The
that.
What
kids
the school-
the kids enroll in your district. So if he's enrolled in your district, he has to attend there. You can't be enrolled in 2 different schools. You can't be like enrolled in Ardmore, Amby, a homeschool student. They're either on your membership roll or they're not. And the only way you get paid for them is if they're what's called a membership, which means you're enrolled in my school, and because of compulsory education, you'll be there all day.
What about the homeschool students who
A
want to
homeschool,
want to do athletics? They can't do athletics at home, they go to the school and do their athletics, they're banned.
Yeah, they can't do that now.
Can't do that either.
homeschool,
They're
kids
out.
don't participate.
it's funny, and the,
They have their own organizations.
They do.
And there's been some efforts to make homeschool kids be able to participate. That opens a whole nother Pandora's box, of how
Yeah.
good they are. Enrollments, like Ardmore doesn't play Plainview because they've got different enrollments, sizes, well, how you count that kid and what kind of The athletics makes it complicated.
What's interesting about that too is, it's called the Tim Tebow law in Florida, where, you know, if you're homeschooled like Tim Tebow is, you can still play high school sport. They tried that in Oklahoma. In fact, the state representative named Elise Hall introduced the bill. She was homeschooled her whole life, and, you know, she thought she was doing a favor, and that bill was soundly killed by homeschoolers. So I'm telling you, the homeschoolers in this state have a libertarian streak like you would not believe. They don't want you to know they exist. They don't want your help. Just leave us alone, which is, I totally respect, and that's a good instinct in Barack Obama's America. But it's just funny how politics works sometimes. Well, thank you guys. Thank you.